This is getting a fair bit of momentum. I know you spent most of today talking to constitutional lawyers about this. What's the process from here on in?
I have, Peter. Actually, we've got now over 100 people that have come forward to be a plaintiff in this action. Having spoken to the constitutional lawyer today, we want to bring on the case sooner rather than later. So we're trying to look at a quick and effective way to go about that. Also, what he wants is people from South Australia and the Northern Territory and possibly even New South Wales to tie them in with it as well, because these are people that don't have very much of the coronavirus there, and to be part of this case. I think it's important to actually tell Anastasia Palaszczuk she can't be a dictator, she's got to be a leader for Queensland. And when I hear that businesses in Queensland are just about going, to the wall, I can't stand back and let that happen. So I hope Queenslanders and the people around Australia get behind me in this push to actually bring some common sense back into the debate about the border closures.
Well, Pauline, I think it's madness, and I think if she continues to close the borders until September, I think there's a lot of electoral pain coming her way. What are people in the bush and the regions saying to you about this particular initiative, this, keeping the borders closed, and how do you intend to fight it? Would this be a High Court challenge you're talking about?
Yes, it will be a High Court challenge because I'm challenging Section 92 of the Australian Constitution. They're also looking at Section 117, but I don't think that will be relevant. So basically Section 92, whereas you talk about trade and commerce, but that is happening, but it's also denying the freedom of people's choice to actually move across the borders. So people who have been denied to actually go and see their parents or go and see their children, freedom of the people. So this is a challenge there. For health reasons, of course, I don't believe that's it's good enough reason. Maybe a couple of months ago, but at the moment, no. Now, when the health minister in Queensland came out and said, well, look, the tourists, don't be relying on the tourist industry as well, because the scenario is the borders may be closed until September. When they shut down the schools, Peter, it wasn't for health reasons, it was to scare the people. And that's exactly what they did. Now, the same thing is scaremongering that's going on. If we don't open up our state, businesses won't be there when people are ready to go back to work. They're folding up. They won't have jobs to go to. This is what I'm telling people. We need the borders open. We need the people coming from down south up to Queensland. We need the tourist industry moving.
Let's talk about Victoria, Pauline, because we know Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State in the United States, has weighed in over the weekend on Victoria's Belt and Roads initiative when it comes to China. He was quite strong on that, basically saying that, the United States wants nothing to do with Victoria if it's going to have a relationship with the Chinese right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Peter, if you know how concerned I am with Daniel Andrews getting tied up with China in the Belt and Road, we've seen it happen in other places around the world where China goes in, they take their companies in, they take their own workers in, they start, and the Victorian state government will be borrowing, and of course it hasn't been confirmed, but around about $24.5 billion for the Chinese to go in there. Now, they'll be building the metro, other infrastructure projects, and it's going to do Australians out of jobs. The Chinese infiltrate themselves in places around the world in this Belt and Road project. Therefore, when countries can't pay them back the monies, they take the assets like the ports or airfields or whatever. They take the infrastructure because they can't pay them back. Daniel Andrews has been very secretive about this, and he shut down the Parliament over the COVID-19, but they're going to start back next week and hopefully they can ask some questions. But it has been above board. There's been no accountability. He's been doing these deals with the Chinese, and the people of Victoria and the opposition, no one else in Parliament has had any say in this whatsoever. I hope that the federal government can intervene here on a security basis. The federal government won't have any dealings with China with their Belt and Road, And it will be so so detrimental to Victoria because they're in debt for $50 billion, and to take out another loan at $24.5 billion, they're on the cusp of losing their AAA rating, which means that the interest rates will go up high. The people of Victoria will be in debt for a long time. And this is why I get so annoyed with the attitude of the Labor state governments, being it and Daniel Andrews or whether it's Palaszczuk, this dictatorship, and not looking at the best interest for what's right for the people.
All right, now the Royal Commission into the bushfires kicked off today. Very unfortunate in the sense that on the first day there was this linkage or alleged linkage between the bushfires and, of course, climate change. But you and I both know, Pauline, that there is also a linkage between the way in which the backburning has been stopped in a lot of these national parks and a lot of these farms that were affected by the bushfires. What's your hope that we will get out of this Bushfire Royal Commission?
The people of Australia need the truth. Now, I don't want anyone pushing their own agenda, whether it's climate change or not climate change, but we need to know what has to be done to stop this happening again. We've had bushfires in the past, Ash Wednesday, we've had other enormous fires that's taken lives, plus also housing and property. But, you know, if they're going to make this a political bun fight and pushing their own agenda to do with climate change, we've lost it. We really have. The people are sick and tired of this, playing politics. They want the answers. And if it means about that burn-offs haven't happened because of people pushing their own political agenda, whether it's state governments, whether it's in local governments, wherever, have actually, you know, because they haven't done their due diligence to ensure the safety and property of Australian citizens, I think it's disgusting if they're going to use this as a bun fight, a political bun fight. I believe that, you know, we haven't looked after the flora, whether national parks or round homes, to allow them to have a clearing. We are a nation that is drought-ridden and it's always going to be that way. It's a continent that we live in. We will have bushfires. We will have floods. It's part of our living conditions, but we've got to know how to live within the realms of making sure that these you know, are diminished to the best that we can so it doesn't affect people's lives and properties.
Now, we've seen the media dominated in recent months by, of course, the coronavirus pandemic, which has meant that some of the big-ticket items that the Palaszczuk government has certainly been looking at in recent months have been put on hold. And I'm specifically referring here, Pauline, to the 2032 bid for the Olympic Games. Now, it's highly likely that the Queensland government will continue to push ahead with that once we get through all this crisis with the coronavirus, but certainly we won't know a result now till probably 2022. And in fact, there's still some suggestion that Japan may not go ahead. Tokyo may not even go ahead in 2021.
That is correct, Peter. You know, she hasn't got the guts to come out and say, well, we're actually going to wipe it. Excuse me. Because, excuse me, Peter. Because this is what the people of Queensland, that's the message I've been getting back. You know who's going to benefit from this? South East Queensland, those people on the Gold Coast, possibly those on the Sunshine Coast. If you go north of that, people in rural and regional Queensland, your viewership, you know what? Don't expect any benefits out of having the Olympics, and it could cost billions of dollars. The Japanese Olympics, they're expecting from $20 billion up to $50 billion. These Olympics have never made a profit. They've actually cost the country who has held them. So this Olympic bid is absolute madness. Now, we don't need to have them here. We can't afford to have it. The Commonwealth Games were an absolute loss and poorly run. And I just don't think we're in debt now for $90 billion, probably headed to $100 billion under the Palaszczuk government. So she either comes out as a leader, tell people, no, it's on hold, or has she got a two-bob each way leading into the election. So she's got it on hold, so those people think we might still have it. She'll get their tick of approval. I think it's terrible. And I had the billboards, 52 billboards out around Queensland to actually say no to the Olympic Games.